Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Sunday, January 14th, 2018. In both the Lynn-Life and the Jamie Body Mind, the authorized souls remain only child souls from the even deeper, denser dimensions, and all other souls from all other dimensions, as long as they're already living by the Search for Truth rules given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us, and are already contributing more to completing the Search for Truth assignments given to the Search for Truth community by wiser minds above all of us than they are taking or using or borrowing in Search for Truth resources. As always, our foundational intention remains to do what is ours to do right now as a multidimensional collective, to create worlds that work in all dimensions for all categories of sentience within those dimensions. One of the hallmarks of this effort for the past 28 years has been to be aware of the denser host lives as beautiful bringers of messages, to interpret the messages and then do what the situation actually calls for. Our last healing session was extremely productive, and we would like to see if we can have another burst forward in the efforts by using the symptoms that are available from this host life right now, whatever they may be, as a springboard for a new breakthrough. And with that, the formally videoed portions of today's efforts begin.
Calling for those presences who really want us, the collective of the contaminated zone, to live our collective soul plan, to join us now. Starting to feel very sad presences coming around the top of the pillar who are starting to wonder if they themselves are inside the contaminated zone.
Yes.
Yeah. And they're seeing people even higher than them who are also starting to wonder, and people higher than those people as well.
Well, clearly the first two tiers are inside the contaminated zone.
That's
yes.
true. Asking that third tier of presences, are the first two tiers of presences in the contamination zone? The third tier nodding, they're all nodding.
They're all nodding.
They're saying clearly they're in the contamination zone,
yes.
Clearly.
Is there a fourth tier?
I think there is a fourth tier.
Hi.
Hello.
Ask them about the third tier.
Is the third tier, and they're already saying, well, yes. The third tier, those people are down there are definitely in the contaminated zone. They look terrible.
And what about the people above you? What do they say?
It feels like the fourth tier people are looking up for the first time ever. And they're wanting to say that there are no people above them.
Hi people above them. Hi, fifth tier. Hi, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I can see the people above them.
Hi.
The tier above them.
Are those fourth tier people, are they inside the contaminated zone?
Nodding. Everybody in the fifth tier seems to be pretty comfortable with that.
And what about the people above you? What do they say?
What about the people above you? I see the sixth tier.
Hi.
Hello.
What do the fifth tier say about the sixth tier people?
The fifth tier is wanting to say that the sixth tier people don't exist and that we're making them up, maybe.
Okay. Hi, sixth tier.
Hello.
Hi.
Asking up to that sixth tier of presences. What now? How to heal the root causes of the delays in getting the solar system installed, and the pain, the bruised feeling in both thumbs, and whatever these symptoms represent, in such a way as to align us, the collective of the contaminated zone, with our collective soul plan. What do we do now? They're saying nobody's ever asked them a question like that before, and so they don't have good answers prepared.
It's okay.
That's really okay.
Start talking, almost doesn't matter what you say.
Oh. They're looking at the dead children that were pumping up into their room, and they're saying, what, it's like they're asking, what are you doing with this stuff? Why do you keep sending this stuff up?
It's the only way we can hear you. If we stop sending this stuff up, the portals close and we can't hear you at all.
That's true.
I'm sorry. They're actually tiny little children that have been through an awful lot. Is it okay with you if we continue to send up the tiny little children so we can hear you?
Those presences are nodding. I think they feel like if they say it's not okay with them, they're going to look like bad people, and they don't want to look like bad people.
No, they don't.
What now to heal the root causes of the solar systems being delayed and getting installed, and the bruised feeling in both thumbs, and whatever those symptoms represent, in such a way as to align us, the collective of the contaminated zone, with our collective soul plan? What now? It's very quiet, but there's a lot of flow of these dead children moving up the back. Just keep pumping them up from deeper, and see maybe if we can stretch higher.
Well, while we're at it, carpe diem, let's deliver a bunch of dead kids up as high as we can. Because meanwhile, the question has gone flying up.
That
and sometimes
is super
that's
true.
enough to unblock it, but we have to pump up these dead kids regardless. It's the gig.
That is true.
Let's just go for it.
Sending up this flow of dead children all the way up to that highest level we connected with, and I already see a hole in the sky of that level starting to tear open, and pumping these dead children all the way up through that hole in the sky. I'm starting to get the feeling that we're pumping up dead children into levels that no one ever expected dead children to get to. And so they don't have up any roadblocks or nets for them, because it's not even in their frame of reference that dead child souls will be blowing up to them. And they're talking about strange weather. Like all of a sudden today we're having very strange weather. Clouds, unusual clouds that sound like they're singing or humming. What now? In order to heal the root causes of the delay in the solar installation, and whatever that symptom represents, in such a way as to align us, the collective of the contaminated zone, with our collective soul plan. What do we do now? I'm starting to see a room in a very important building in a very high dimension. It looks like it could be a government office at a high level. And it's a meeting of important leader types in that very large dimension. And they're meeting not in secret, but definitely behind closed doors. And it seems like the stated purpose of the meeting is we're going to put on the table lots of inconvenient realities, all kind of circling around a central point. And the stated purpose of the meeting is that we're going to somehow come up with a solution, but it feels like nobody in that room is actually asking what would actually make the situation better in any kind of long-term way.
The thinking is so short-term.
Yes, that's the feeling. Extremely short-term and very limited. Like they're defining the problem as very, very small.
Or incorrect definition. Somehow it's not accurately defined.
Yes, that's true. There are presences looking down on this meeting.
Ask them what to do.
What do we do? Oh, those presences feel so glad we asked. It feels like they've been trying to get through to those men in that meeting in that higher dimension for a long time and have not been having success, and they're feeling very at the end of their rope.
What do we do?
What do we do? They don't actually know, I don't think.
I don't think they had an answer prepared.
No.
They didn't expect to be asked.
That's true.
All right. Take all the time you need. We'll be here for a little bit longer.
That's true. And for now, I think I can aim up to pulse the dead children up into that room where the meeting is.
Yes, to give them a sample.
I think that's a really good thing to do.
Yes.
It feels like dust is spitting out the middle of the conference table.
Mm-hmm.
And the participants in the meeting, most of them seem like they want to pretend it's not happening.
Mm-hmm. They do seem to want to pretend it isn't happening. I think it freaks them out.
I think it freaks them out. Now it feels like everyone in that room has noticed the dust coming out of the center of the table.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're starting to look at each other sideways, like, do they notice it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now they're seeing the other guys looking sideways, so now I see we're all looking sideways and nobody has said anything out loud yet. But now it's very apparent that we're all watching this happen.
It's like watching climate change.
Yes, very much.
Mm-hmm. Is anybody noticing that there's pollution, clouds of pollution, and they're being referred to as fog, but it isn't fog because fog rises up from the ground?
All of a sudden, when those words were coming out of that body's mouth, it sounded like they were reverberating in the room where the meeting was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And like those meeting participants heard that.
Mm-hmm.
And now the conversation that had been happening in the meeting seems to have stopped. And they're all kind of looking around like they're unsure if they should run out of the room or hide under the table. And the presences above them feel really excited about this. It feels like finally they're not just talking about stupid things that aren't connected to the problem. Maybe they'll hear me now.
What is this stuff that we're calling fog that isn't fog because it isn't rising up from the ground? What is that stuff? Fog rises up from the ground. These clouds, these low-lying clouds that can be really thick.
Those words just came out the mouth of someone who looks like an assistant of one of the meeting participants, who now looks kind of surprised that she even said those words.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been said now, and they're in the room. And now there's someone upstairs is calling the little man at the table, who purports to be a scientist, and who is there as like the scientific representative of the group. Mm-hmm. And all the other members of the group are turning to look at him, because that question just got asked. And he looks so scared. He looks like he's never been this scared, maybe ever in his life. What is it?
What is that stuff that's being labeled, quote, fog, unquote, but quite obviously can't be fog because it isn't rising from the ground and fog rises from the ground? What is that stuff?
I can feel that scientist's guardian angels reaching down into his dimension and putting a hand on his back.
Mm-hmm.
You can do it, you can do it. And he's starting to talk very softly. At first, it sounds like what he's saying is unrelated to the question, because he begins by talking about atoms and elements, and he's talking about how elements affect each other, and he's talking about it in what sounds like a kind of vague and general way. But as he's talking, it's starting to become clear that what he's talking about are the factors that lead to climate change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's just kind of circling around the point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about what happens in a container when these kinds of chemical reactions take place over a certain length of time.
Oh, wow.
And it's becoming clear that the container he's talking about is the container of the planet where this meeting is taking place.
Mm-hmm.
But because the things he's been saying are so obviously accepted as truth, everyone at the table has kind of been listening, because he's just talking about basic chemistry. He hasn't been linking it to climatology or meteorology, just talking about what happens when you have this kind of chemical and this kind of chemical in a container. And now he's kind of stopped talking, and he's looking down at the table.
Pump up the dead kids so that he sees it.
Pumping up the dead children up to that room so he can see it. And now it sounds like one of the most important people at the table, if not the most important person, is looking up, and his eyes are strangely clear, so maybe he's listening up to somebody in a higher dimension. And he says something like, "So what does that mean? What does that mean?"